ever notice how you always hear shh just before the movie starts? Shh. It's not refreshment without Schweppes.
I just want to apologize to Mike's mom and Josh's mom and my mom. I am so sorry, because it is my fault, because it was my project. I am so scared.
Hi guys, welcome to the AB in the Films movie. Well, we got an hour and a half to kill. So, there's a lot of things I've been thinking over the past year and a half. ever since the show went off the air. And, well, basically, I did my job. The goal was to make a 9-seasoned long show. Mission accomplished. I did it. There was no intention of doing a 10th season and beyond. There was no intention of doing that. There was, however, an intention to get up to 200 episodes. I only did 189, so I was 11 off, but still, I came close. Alright, so where do I begin with this? Well, I've decided to make this not just a movie, but a testimony as to how all this happened, really. You know, what happened here? What made me want to do a show where I sat in my room for 9 years, 9 full years, and just talked about cinema? Seriously, it was 9 full years. November 26, 2011 to November 26 of 2020. Yeah. I don't know what happened. I guess it all started back when I was 5 years old, really. Started watching movies. I've talked about this on the show before. Started watching movies. And I think it opened the door to other worlds for me. A fantasy. And I liked it. And I wanted to keep it going. You know? Like, reality isn't... I'm not interested in that. Who is, right? But this fantasy right here, anything's possible. Oh, yeah. I took some notes here, actually, to help me out. Let me see here. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yes. Well, I think it goes back to wanting to create the fantasies, I would say. Because when you're a 5-year-old kid and you watch films like The Sound of Music, Cats, the musical, every Disney movie ever made at the time, and then you start looking at other films, you know, you start looking at the horror movies like Jaws, The Birds, Psycho, then you go into the Wes Craven era, then Martin Scorsese's era. You start going into all these movies and you start to realize you've been in this fantasy for so long, all of a sudden watching movies becomes a little boring. Just a little bit. Now, you don't want to give that up because you still love it. Or at least I did. But you want to create that now. You know what I mean? So how do you do that? Well, you start by doing what you see on the screen. And with me, it was acting. It was always acting. I remember going to Drama Kids back when I was 8, 9 years old. I wanted to be like Jackie Gleason. I really did. I would watch the Honeymooners repeats, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to do that more than anything. I remember watching Singing in the Rain and thinking, I want to dance like Gene Kelly. I remember watching Jaws and thinking, I want to make a movie like Spielberg. I want to make a shark movie. I did. Took 20 years, but I still did it. And you start thinking about all these things that you're doing. And I know this might sound like a therapy session, but I really feel that this testimony is important to talk about. It really is, because there comes a time in your life when you just wake up and you start to realize that, I don't want to say you wasted your time, but you just wonder what it was all for. You really do. I mean, the reason why I wanted this show to be 9 seasons, now you might be asking yourself, well, why 9 seasons? Where did the 9 come from? Well, Seinfeld was 9 seasons. And I was a big Seinfeld fan. Don't believe me? Here I am on Christmas Day getting all the Seinfeld season sets. Yeah, I was a Seinfeld fanatic. I was a Seinfeld fanatic before I was a Seinfeld fanatic. I remember my dad watching that show on television in the 90s when I was 5 years old. And I remember watching an episode or two. And then when they started coming out on DVD, we started buying the DVDs, and I was watching all these new episodes, new for me, that I never saw before. And I thought they were great, and I became a Seinfeld fanatic. But not only that, I was studying it. I was interested in how Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld wrote that show. And I thought, I want to write a TV show. So I started making TV shows when I was a kid. Movies wasn't enough. Started doing TV shows. Started creating episodes and seasons. I was saying the word season before everybody else was. Today, everybody says that word. Have you ever noticed that? Everybody says that word when it comes to talking about Netflix or any show that is streaming right now. Hey, did you catch the new season? Oh, the new season comes out this week. Oh, it's new season, new season. For the longest time, I was the only kid saying that word. I mean, nobody else around me was using words like that. Now everybody says that. I was ahead of the time. I never said I was a comedian. But you know, I look back on my life and the movies that really infiltrated me. Because that's what they did. Every movie I've ever seen and liked, especially the ones that go back to childhood, have infiltrated every aspect of my mind. They really have. There are times when I'll have a conversation with somebody and I'll use a sentence that was a line from a movie. I'm not kidding. Am I alone here? I don't know. But it's kind of scary because I look around and nobody else does that. Nobody talks like that. People talk normally. I guess I wasn't made normal. I grew up wanting to be an entertainer in some way because I was so moved by everything I was watching, listening to, witnessing, comprehending. I was fascinated by this stuff. I went through so many fads as a kid, and they all involved being an entertainer. First it was being an actor, then it was being a director, then a writer, then an animator, then a singer, then a songwriter, then a music producer. It just kept going and going and going. Then an editor. And talk show host. Yeah. Did my own talk show for 3 years. 2006 to 2009. In my bedroom. Isolated. Made all these episodes. Nobody was going to watch them. They weren't going to go on the internet. Nobody could see this. It's too embarrassing, too personal. Think of this as a video diary. That's pretty much what it was. Whatever was happening to me at the time, or whatever music I was listening to, or movies I was watching at the time, it was reflected in the movies I was making. Pretty much. And look at me now. You see, when I got to the 9th season of A.B. and the Films, I knew it was going to be the final season. And I pumped out a lot of episodes in that final season. I really did. I really did. You look at that episode count, it's a lot. Because I was trying to get up to 200. I was trying to force myself to make all those episodes. And why? Why? I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of movies and shows that I didn't even review. And sometimes music I would review on AB in the films that I never even got to and never will get to. So why not do a 10th season? Well, a big change happened to me during that 9th season, you guys. A big change happened. And it was reflected in the finale when I left. And everything that was going on in my life at the time in November of 2020. Some people know what I'm talking about. Others don't. And that's okay. You don't have to know what was happening in my life personally to understand this story. And for most of you, that's probably a good thing. But I'm going to talk about a few of these things. And that's really what I think this testimony should be about. I really do. Because, you know, for the past 5 years, especially the last 2 to 3 years, I've been questioning a lot of things in my life. A lot of things. And these are mostly things that I have just been going through the motions with. My job. What I do. The way I live my life. What is happening in my life. What has happened in my life. And how can I not repeat it? The reason why is because there are a lot of things in my life that I regret. We all have regrets. Everybody wishes they could go back in time. Oh, if only Back to the Future was a real movie, right? Again, there's the movie thing again. Everything's a movie in my world. It all comes back to the movies. Anytime there would be a conversation with somebody in my reality, the first thing I think of is if this scene relates to something in a movie that I have seen or that I know about, I automatically default to that. And that's not really what a normal person would do. I guess I wasn't made normal, right? But I've accepted that. It's just the way I am. The movies infiltrated me and I allowed it. I couldn't just sit and enjoy it as entertainment. It became more than that. And I think to people who want to work in movies as for a career, it has to have that impact on you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the notion to want to make the cinema or to entertain the public in that way. I don't think so. It has to have some kind of a driving force in you, and I guess you're born with it or you're not. And I wanted to make movies in Hollywood more than anything at the age of 10. That was the only thing I wanted to do. I wanted to quit school and go be a filmmaker. That's what I wanted to do. That's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like a director. Because I was watching all of these directors and all the movies they were making, and I was idolizing these people. I was idolizing a lot of people. We've all done that. Don't deny it. We've all done that at some point. And I don't know. When I was growing up, I could quote movies. I could quote trailers growing up. I was studying movies in every form. Every aspect. Scenes. Shots. Trailers. Special features of movies. When DVDs started coming out, I was watching the making of this movie, the making of that movie, left and right. And then I turned 18. And a big tragedy struck my family. tore my whole world up. My fantasy world. It was destroyed. And I was so hurt by that. And to this day, I'm not fully over it. I'd be lying if I said I was. Because I still think about it sometimes. Not as often as I did 10 years ago. But it still comes up from time to time. And I wonder, why? Why did I go through that in my life? Why did that happen? Well, let's go over everything. First, I'll tell you what the event was. On September 30th, 2011, 2 months before A.B. and the Films began, I was forced out of my childhood home. I was forced out. And so was my family. Because of a horrific event that happened within our family 9 years earlier than 2011. And I won't go into what that is, because it doesn't matter. What's done is done. But we were forced out, and we left. I left the home that I lived in for 12 years, most of my childhood, because of this event. And at the time, I was very hurt by it, upset, because my entire house at that time was being used as a movie studio. Had been for 8 years. See, in 2003, I made my first film. I had been making movies before 2003, starting around 2000, 2001, right around the time when we moved in to this house. And I was the actor. My dad was the movie maker. He was the cameraman. But in 2003, I had this idea for a movie, and I was going to star in it. My dad didn't want to film it. He was too tired that day. But he showed me how to work the camera. And he put the tape in. It was one of those birdhouse cameras, you know, with the VHS tape that you put in, close it up, you know. Had a viewfinder the size of my fist, you know, like that. And I made my first movie. It was 39 minutes long. A little short film called Gun Quest. That was my first film. That was the first AB film with the AB logo. That was the first one. And I was very pleased with it. I liked it. Because, you see, before I made that movie, when I was the actor, my dad was filming me playing. He wasn't filming the story that I was acting out with toys or whatever I was using, you know? He was filming me playing. This time, I was setting up the shots. I was filming what I wanted to see. And when the tape was done, when the movie was all done, because I was editing in the camera at this point, it was what I visioned. And finally, I realized I like this. And that is where the big word clicked in. And it stayed the entire time. Control. Control. I had control over this. What I didn't realize was that this little thing would end up controlling me for the next 20 years, whether I liked it or not. I will explain. We have time. But if you're not interested, there's the door. I'm sure there's another movie that's playing in the theater here. All of you that are watching this in your homes. But again, Never said I was a comedian. Let's keep going. So 2004 comes along. I'll save that for another time. 2005 comes along. I get a new camera. This time, it's an 8mm tape camera. Okay, it's not the video cassettes anymore, but it's still, it could work. It could work. I must have made 10 to 12 films a year for the next four and a half years, I would say. Between 2005 and 2008, 2009. So, 2005. At this point, I'm in the 6th grade. There were a lot of things going on at that time. I was really into the Beatles at that age. Really into the Beatles. I remember being in the 4th grade. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. Guys, I was a Beatles fanatic growing up. I was. Do not put me in a Beatles trivia game. You are going to lose. I could name every song. Every one. Because every single one of their songs is a hit. End of story. And to all you Beatle fans out there, you know exactly what I mean by that. I can't think of one bad Beatles song. I can't think of one boring Beatles song. Not one. But I loved their music. I did. And I really liked I liked hanging out with my friends at the time that liked the Beatles. You know? My friend Jeff introduced me to them. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. I was in the 4th grade. We were in music class. And I went to Catholic school, by the way. One of the sisters was teaching music class. And she was making us, I think, do this. Again, we were in 4th grade at the time. Doing this song. And Jeff, my friend, he felt that this song was beneath him. He did not want to participate in this. And he decided to sit down in his desk and not join the rest of the class. Now, he wasn't in trouble or anything. He just didn't want to do it. So I thought, well, wait a minute. If he can... Because, again, I'm not a leader. I'm a follower. It's just the way sorry. I can't lie. I thought, well, if he's not going to do it... Because I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to do that. I figured if he's not going to do it, I'm going to sit down next to him. And I sat down next to him. And he had this CD with him of Abbey Road. And he showed it to me and he said, do you know who these guys are? And I said, no, who are they? And he said, these are the Beatles. And I said, oh yeah, my dad bought that Beatles anthology on DVD. He's been watching it a lot lately. Which, this was true. It's right here. Had that for 20 years. But he and I got along like that. Everything was about the Beatles. Everything. But he was really interested in World War II. I've never met anyone like him. And I'm pretty sure everyone that graduated 8th grade with me, they can probably say the same thing about him. Because he was one smart guy. This guy could speak so many languages. This guy was a very intellectual human being. Very nice guy. I loved going over to his house. Whenever he came over to my house, or I went over to his, or we went over to someone else's house that we were friends with at the time. I'm trying not to name names really here, because I don't know if they want their names mentioned or not. But those really were some of the greatest times of my life. They really were. And I wish I could go back and relive some of those times. I really wish I could. Because they were fun. They really were fun. And I'm not having a crisis or anything. I'm not, like, even though I'm turning 30 next year, I'm not having a midlife crisis or anything like that. I'm not. You know, I've already accepted that, you know, this world doesn't last forever. I've already accepted that. I accepted that in January of 2020 when I had that experience happen to me. But let's go back to 2011. But first I should probably build up for 2011 anyway. So 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I'm making all these movies. I'm making all these TV shows. I was doing a sitcom with my sister. I was doing an animated show with Beanie Babies, with puppets. I was doing a talk show. I was doing a stand-up show. There was a time when I wanted to be a comedian. I wanted to be like Dennis Leary. I had my Dennis Leary phase. I had my Lewis Black phase. Yeah, I did. I had my Eddie Murphy phase, my George Carlin phase. Oh, yeah. Yes, I did. I wanted to be like these guys. And I was making all these movies. I was making all these shows. I made another sitcom, Heavy Duty. That was another show I was making at the time in my house. And then in 2011, it was all gone. It was all gone. All the shows had to end. The bedroom that I made all those movies in was the studio. Well, let me explain the studio, because I'd like to talk about this. So, when we moved into that house, we moved there in Thanksgiving of 99. That's when we moved in. Now, there were only 3 bedrooms in that house. The way the house was designed was, when you walked into the garage, now it was a 2-story house. When you walked into the garage, you could look up, and the roof of the house was all the way up in a 2nd-story area, and there was a window up there. And you're like, how are you ever going to look out that window? I mean, it's all the way up top there. You would have had to build a floor and make another room up there. That's exactly what my dad did 4 or 5 years into living there. He did. 2002, 2003. He got tired of my sister and I having our toys in the living room and in the den. He got tired of it. You know, he was in his 40s. He was like, I know I have kids, but I'm tired of seeing their toys all around, so I'm going to build another bedroom for them. They could play with their toys up there. That's what he did. Made another room, and we called it the 4th bedroom. And that is where I made my movies. Now, my sister had some of her stuff in there too, but I was mostly making movies in there, and eventually I would end up kicking my sister out some of the time when I was growing up. Oh, we had a lot of fights, my sister and I. Tons of fights. We did a sitcom together when I was 12, and she wanted to be in my shows and in my movies because she was younger than me, and I think maybe... See, I wouldn't know because I don't have a sibling that's older than me, so I don't know what it's like to look up to a sibling. I really don't. I just know how to look down. Sorry, Gina. But I guess maybe because she was younger than me, she was looking for something else to do. And maybe... Because I remember Gina, there was a time when she had a phase where she wanted to be a filmmaker. I mean, it only lasted 15 minutes, but there was a time when she wanted to do that. And I remember thinking, oh, we could work together on the next movie. We could do that. And then she didn't want anything to do with what I was doing. But she was interested in singing. And she wanted to be a singer for the longest time. And then she got older and that kind of phased out. And she decided to do, important things, She wanted to have a career that she could rely on, And it makes sense, looking back at it now, it makes sense. So all these shows came to a screeching halt. They all either got canceled or I had to end them. But you know what I was thinking? Because I was even aware of this little control thing. You see, the control aspect of making all those films and those episodes and those shows and those music videos. I made music videos too. The obsession for that was the fact that I had to make this amount of episodes in this year. Before December 31st, 2005 comes to a close, this has to be made and released and done, and that's it. And nobody was going to watch it. I never took the time to take a step back and say to myself, why am I doing this? Let me give you an example. New Year's Eve, 2005, going into 2006. My mom, my dad, my sister, they're down in the TV room. They're watching Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve. They're having a blast. They're having fun. You know what I was doing? I was isolating myself. I was in the fourth bedroom making this movie, trying to finish it, because if I kept making it, this was my reasoning. Now, this is the 12-year-old here talking. I was 12. My thought was, and I felt that if I didn't finish this movie before 2005 was over, then it wouldn't be a 2005 release. How stupid is that? Where is that impulse coming from? And that stayed with me for a long time. A long time. So finally, 2011 comes. Had to say goodbye to the house. But I knew, I felt in my gut, I knew this was going to be a good thing. Because I knew if I didn't have the house anymore, the sets anymore, which is where I was doing all these shows. Was doing one show in the kitchen, you know, because we were doing a sitcom. I did another show upstairs. I did one in the hallway. I did one downstairs in the living room. I knew that if I didn't have and I was doing heavy duty all over the house. I knew that if I didn't have those sets anymore, I wouldn't be stressing myself out anymore by making these movies. So I looked at it as a blessing. It was hard to say goodbye. It was hard. I mean, my whole obsession for movies actually started in that house. It kind of started in the house before, but I was little. I was sick. Like I said, I was 6 when we moved into that house. I was 6. You know? And we left when I was 18. I mean, that's 12 years. That's 2/3 of my childhood right there. It was a lot. And I don't miss that house. I don't. I did the first few years. I mean, Wonderland Pier saved me. Did. Really did. Because when I got hired at Wonderland, and this happened during AB and the Films, when AB and the Films was starting out, I think I did the Little Manhattan review. It was right around that time. I got hired at Wonderland Pier in April of 2012, and everything turned around. Took time, but that's when it started to turn around. Took 7 months. We left September 30th, worst day of my life. April 8th, I got hired. Took 7 months. It's a long time. Maybe 6 months or something. I don't know. But, so that happens. So I don't have the fourth bedroom anymore. I don't have the studio anymore. I don't have any of that. Do I keep making movies? Well, I'm 19 now. I don't want to keep making movies. But I like doing heavy duty. Because that was the first show I was doing with actors that wasn't just me. So on that note, I like doing heavy duty. And it was fun to do. Stressful, but it's fun. And on the other hand, I started to think, I want to do this show, AB in the Films. I want to do it because, in 2008, I never thought of being a movie critic. Movie criticism never entered my head. It never really did. Until sophomore year of high school. And a friend of mine showed me this guy on YouTube called the Nostalgia Critic. And I loved him. And I watched him religiously every Tuesday night for the next 9 years. And I loved it. I loved it. And I started getting into Siskel and Ebert at the time. And I liked the way they would criticize films and movie criticism in general. And I thought, you know, I have a lot of things to say about certain movies. Let me do my movie critic show. That's where ABN Films came from. Because I was thinking, what am I going to call this show? What am I going to call it? You know? Am I going to get another friend of mine on here and we're going to do the show like Siskel and Ebert? Nah. I just tell you what I think. And I thought, I thought, you know, when I started that new TV show, I remember thinking, because I started doing that show right after I left my childhood house, I remember thinking, okay, I'm not going to force myself to make a certain amount of episodes. I'm not going to do that. In season 9, hate to say it, I ended up breaking that rule, but in the first season, I remember thinking, I want to do the bare minimum. No editing, no movie clips, nothing. I just want to turn the camera on and talk. That's an episode. And the rule is, I'm going to make one rule. It's not going to be 22, 24 episodes a season like a normal TV show does. It's going to be as many episodes as I can do between November 26th of 2011, the first time it comes out, and I have until November of 2012 to end the season, and whether or not I want to start another season. And by the time I got to season 4 on AV and the Films, I decided to, I thought to myself, you know, what if I could take this show up to season 9? I've always wanted to do a 9-season show. You know, Seinfeld was 9 seasons. How I Met Your Mother was 9 seasons. Everybody Loves Raymond, King of Queens. All these great shows were 9 seasons. Unfortunately, Friends was not. It could have been. Cheers could have been. But Cheers went on way too long. Big Bang Theory went on way too long, too. But I remember thinking, if I could make 9 years of this show, I did my job. Because all the other shows that I had done prior to AV and the Films did not last 9 seasons. I wanted Heavy Duty to be 9 seasons. We got to season 4 and that was it. You know? We could have done season 5, but it would have been with different actors. And I didn't want to replace the cast again. Because if you think about it, I did that. I did replace the cast. You watch season 1, you go to season 2, different cast from that point on. I didn't want to do that in season 5. We had already established that this is the Heavy Duty universe, really. But the times were changing. We were getting older. We were graduating college, and unless we were going to get paid, no chance. It's a miracle we did 4 seasons. We could have done a heavy-duty movie. We could have. We were thinking about it. We were going to do that. But it was either a heavy-duty movie or season 4. And I liked doing the episodes. It was fun editing that show. Editing Heavy Duty was the fun. That was the most fun I ever had, was editing Heavy Duty. Because those bloopers were a riot every time. And I remember Mike gave me a shout out when we were in the attic. We were filming the record episode. It was like live with AB and the Films. I remember that. I think that's on the blooper reel, the season 4 blooper reel. But anyway. So I kind of stopped making movies. I've made a few movies here and there since 2012. But not like the ones I did when I was a kid. And most of these movies are not that good anyway. They're not. They're really not. So those were the films that I did. I think I made something like 70 movies, maybe more. I think more. Definitely over 300 episodes of television. I mean, AB and the Films was 189 episodes alone, and I did 10 television shows, everybody. 10. Including Heavy Duty. 10 shows. Some of these shows went on for 5 years. Almost 6. 5 years. I never reached past season 5 on any of these shows except AB and the Films. Most of my shows either ran between 1 season or 3 seasons or 4 or 5. That was it. AB and the Films is the only one to hit 9 and past a 5th season. That was the only one. So when I got to season 5, and I did that Christmas special, and The Force Awakens, I was impressed that I was at season 5, because I remember thinking, I'm in season 5 now. If I can make it to season 9, that means the show's halfway over at this point. And by the time I got to season 6, it was hard doing AB and the Films. It was hard. It got really hard to do that show. Because I was getting, well, I promised to keep this out, but I was losing hope in Hollywood. I wasn't really caring much about Hollywood by the time I got to season 6 of AB and the Films. I didn't care too much about the new movies that were coming out. I didn't care about the politics of the movie stars that were coming out. It was getting harder and harder and harder to defend these people and the industry. Let's put it that way. It was getting harder and harder to do that. That's why, if you notice, in seasons 6, 7, 8, and 9, most of the films that I review are older movies or nostalgia movies for me. But if you watch the first 2 seasons or the first 3 seasons, even season 4 and 5, most, if not all of the episodes are new releases. Now, in seasons 6 through 9, yeah, there's a new release every once in a while. Yeah, there's some new releases, but not really. There's a reason for that. There's your answer. And I remember thinking, when season 9 was coming to a close, I remember thinking, well, do I want to do a season 10? Maybe I do want to do season 10. Maybe I do. And the timing came and went, and I gotta tell you, it was almost impossible to finish season 9. There were a good 4 or 5 episodes I wanted to do in season 9, and I just couldn't do them. I couldn't do them. I got my reasons. I just couldn't do them. And looking back on it, I'm glad I didn't. Because there's a reason for that. And the other thing I want to mention here is movies can mean anything to anyone. And the great thing about them is that even though they're fake, they still feel real. That's how much power this drug called cinema has. It really is unbelievable. It really is. And to stress yourself out over creating this, I mean, doesn't the Bible say don't build treasures on earth? Sorry. I had a moment in January of 2020. And I can't explain why it happened or how it happened. I have theories so far in life. But I think the biggest one was to help me wake up. Wake up. Stop putting everything in your life first. Put it all second. Because the second you not only do that, but you know how to do that, you could do anything. The sky's the limit, man. You could do anything. And that is so true. And I try to practice it. I screw up. There are times when I put this first. I am making this movie at 12:19 in the morning. Do I want to make this at 12:19 in the morning? No. Am I forcing myself to? Yeah. You see, the compulsion is still there. But why do I want to do it? Is it because I want approval from somebody? What, so the girls will go out with me? That was my stupid logic as a kid. Oh, the football players are doing so much better than me. But let me do this, because I'll impress the girls that way. It didn't work in grade school, didn't work in high school, didn't work in college, it didn't work after college. I'd call myself a loser, but I really haven't lost anything because I haven't gained anything. That's funny because it's true. Did you ever have... Anybody who's watching this probably understand. I think the kids might not understand. But if you're my age, or if you're in high school or anything like that, maybe you'll know. Did you ever like somebody? I mean, really, really like somebody growing up, and she didn't feel the same as you did? And yet you still convinced yourself that maybe she could? That is such a shallow thing to think, right? And you wonder, and what's sad about it is you start to think, where did I go wrong? Why is it that I'm 30, almost 30, and everybody around me has moved on with their lives, and yet I haven't? I'm still living the same way I did when I was 12. Not entirely the same way, but not much has changed since 2005. And this was 17 years ago. And I wonder, why is it that everybody around me is engaged? Everybody around me is getting married. Everybody's having kids. And here I am. What am I doing wrong? I want what everybody else wants. How come it's not happening? Well, maybe there's a reason for it. Okay, maybe there is a reason for it. Maybe there is. I did a movie criticism show for 9 seasons because I loved Seinfeld and I loved movies. And did people tune in and watch the show during the 9 years? Yeah. Did people like it? From what I know. Did it have a massive audience? Of course not. But it was never about getting views. It was about entertaining people. And I think I did the job. I think I did it. But you start to look back and you wonder, where did I go wrong? Why did I waste so much time putting effort into something that nobody was ever going to see? And why am I putting effort into stuff that's going on YouTube that not many people are going to watch because they have their own lives to live? I mean, if I had a life, I mean, think about it. If I had a life, a real life with a big job and a family and everything, I wouldn't have time to do this, let alone watch it. You know? I know this sounds like a therapy session, but that's what this testimonial is really all about. Like, what was I thinking? And you know, here's something I want to talk about. I saw this movie for the first time earlier this year. Say Anything. This is one of the greatest love stories I've ever seen since Little Manhattan. And I reviewed Little Manhattan. I had a whole backstory with that movie. It had to do with the girl that I had a huge crush on in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I will not say her name. Because I know she probably isn't watching, but hey, I'm a nice guy. I don't need to mention her name. She's married anyway, so it doesn't even matter. But you ask yourself, AB, why are you talking about something that happened 15, 16 years ago? Because it's had an effect on me of everything I've had later. Maybe that's why I like the movie High Fidelity, that John Cusack was in too. Watch the movie High Fidelity. That's a movie. John Cusack is thinking to himself, you know, where did I go wrong in my relationships? Let me listen to the music. I mean, just replace music with movies. It's me. It's my story. It really is. The only difference is I never actually got a second date with any of these girls. I know I'm a nerd. I know. It's just the way. Maybe here's what I do wonder. This is why I would love to go back. What if there were girls that liked me and tried to get me to notice them, and I was too stupid because I was hung up on this one girl that I didn't see what these other girls were trying to do? Because I look back on it and I wonder, wait a minute, I think this girl liked me at the time. I think this girl liked me then too. And I didn't see it because I was so hung up on this girl. And she didn't even like me at all. But I want to get back to Say Anything. You know, Say Anything. This is a guy who likes this girl, who's graduating, who's terrified of the future, doesn't know what she wants to do with her life, and he wants to ask her out on a date, and he does. And he ends up falling in love with her. And she does the same thing with him. Now, that's the movies right there, because that doesn't happen with me. But she has this relationship with her dad, played by John Mahoney. Pre-Frasier, by the way. And Ione Skye, who's Diane Court, I think her name is. Yeah. She has this relationship with her dad, where she can talk to him about anything. And apparently he can talk to her about anything. So she thinks. And I won't go into the rest of the movie there, but let's just say that that's the movie. And Cameron Crowe directed it, the guy that did Jerry Maguire. I like Jerry Maguire. I thought that movie was pretty good. And also Cameron Crowe, the guy who wrote Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I love that movie. It's the only Sean Penn movie I can tolerate. This is true. It's a good movie. I really like Say Anything. It's a great little film. Never reviewed it on the show. But I did review it in the movie. So I really liked that movie. But I would say that my big problem with films is not only have they infiltrated me, but I'm living my life through them. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I liked Dawson's Creek so much. James Van Der Beek's character, Dawson Leary. He wants to be a filmmaker. And he takes these little things from specifically Spielberg films, because that's his favorite director. My favorite director, too, when I was 10. Not anymore. But he takes these moments in Spielberg films that he can attach them to his life. And this is a show. This is a character I'm talking about here. He takes these movies that from his favorite director and he puts them in his own life, and he tries to explain to his friend Joey, Katie Holmes, how he perceives life through cinema. And I was doing this since I was 10 years old. The only thing is I didn't have a whole lot of friends to talk about it with. I didn't have too many friends. I didn't. I had some. But I did the same thing, and that's one of the reasons why I connected with Dawson's Creek right away, because I loved that show, and I love that theme song by Paula Cole. Who doesn't, right? Not the second theme song, the first theme song. Okay? And I loved that show. And I saw that show when I was in high school, in 2011. Right around that time when I was graduating high school. Finally sat down and watched the show. I had seen promos for it for years, but I had never seen the show. And I bought I watched the first 3 seasons in like a month. I was obsessed with the show. Loved it. Took me 10 years to get to the finale. I'm not kidding. And the show's only 6 seasons long. How did it take 10 years to watch a 6-season show? The episodes are an hour long. I have a whole thing with an hour-long television. Like, you better really have something good to say if you're going to make an hour-long TV show. Because I just don't like hour-long dramas. I'm not a fan. But Dawson's Creek, I like the characters. Also, quick side note about Dawson's Creek. The show, if anyone's ever seen Dawson's Creek, we all agree, I'm pretty sure we all agree here, Katie Holmes was the star of that show, okay? She was the star. It was not James Van Der Beek. It was Katie Holmes. All 6 seasons of Dawson's Creek, it was always about Joey Potter. Okay? She was the star of the show. She was. I'm sorry. Watch it again. It's really all about her. So, movies are a fun thing. They're fun. Films are fun. They're analyzed. They're studied. I love them. But I wonder if because I love them too much, maybe that's why these other things in life aren't happening for me. Look, I've accepted the fact that I'm never going to be a filmmaker in Hollywood. I am 1,000% and beyond okay with that. Because I have learned some things about Hollywood over the last few years. Yeah, I don't want any part of that. Because think about it. Once you're there, you are locked in contracts that you cannot get out of. I bondaged myself for years, forcing myself to make movies and shows for consumption because I wanted to have control. Well, I got it, and yet I had no control over my life. And I wasn't under any contract. Now take that and add that into the real world with contracts and all that. Yeah, I don't want any part of that. I lived it. I don't want to live it in the real world. I lived it in a fantasy. And I get angry about this sometimes, believe it or not. Because I wish I had spent more time with my friends growing up. I would love to know what they're doing now. I'm curious. I think about that sometimes. Does that ever happen to you? You ever just go about your day and you stop and think, hey, I wonder what he's doing right now. I haven't seen him in 10 years, but I wonder where he is in life right now. What's he doing? What's she doing? Oh, she's married? Oh, how about, oh, look at that. She married him. Oh, they were going out. I remember that. They were going out back in high school. Look at that. They finally tied the knot. Oh, my gosh. Happens a lot. And, you know, sometimes I look at some of these women and I ask myself, you think I would have had a shot back in high school or college? Like, you ever think I would have had a shot if I'd asked her out? I didn't. She would have said no anyway. How would I have known that if I hadn't have done it? Well, I always get a no. It always happens. Never get a yes. I've gotten 2 yeses in my entire life. All this time. They always ended after date. I was charming. I was nice. I did everything you're supposed to do. I tried not to be a geek. I didn't talk too much about myself. I don't know what happened. I don't get it either. I don't. Is it because maybe one day I'm going to meet somebody that, you know, God was saving for me or something? And vice versa with her? I don't know. It's possible. Hey, when you put all this second, anything's possible, man. And films have pros and cons. They can be brainwashing you, and they can make you feel good. But in the end, it's fake. It's a movie. It's not real. Really take a step back. You know, I was never a fan of Star Wars. Not to say I don't like Star Wars. I think Star Wars is a great trilogy. You know, Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. That's it. Everything else can suck it. But I always felt like, you know, everybody dresses up. Everybody says like, oh, that's not how the Force works. The Force is like that. Han shot first. And it's like, it's a movie. It's a movie. And trust me, there are films that I geek out about, that I nerd out about. And I get lost in that too. But in the end, I take a step back and I'm like, you know, it's only a movie. It's a film. That's all it is. It's a bunch of images strung together. Heck, if it wasn't for a light bulb, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Really think about it. Do your history. You wouldn't have film if it wasn't for a light bulb. Yeah, this movie Say Anything was really good. Really good. I mean, that iconic scene of him holding the boombox up and you hear the Peter Gabriel song In Your Eyes. Like, oh man, it's just so good. Such a great scene. But it's not real. None of this is real. I'm sorry to bring everybody down. It's just like, you know, I'm just trying to figure out where I went wrong here with all these, with making films. I'm trying to figure out where I went wrong, what I did. I mean, it seems to me like the only person I ever harmed was myself. You know, I'm not going to say I deluded myself into thinking like, oh, I could be this great filmmaker and, you know, I'm 30 and, oh, it's not going to happen. And, you know, I'm okay with it not happening. I'm okay with it. Even if it does happen, I don't care because, you know what? I've been making movies for 20 years. I've been a filmmaker for 20 years. Or a movie maker for 20 years. However you want to word it. Because I guess maybe I wanted to be with somebody because the movies were telling me. I guess I wanted this because the movies were telling me. I wanted this because this happened to, you know, like, I remember watching Little Manhattan, and I remember thinking, wow, a lot of things are happening in this movie are happening to me in my life right now. You know? This really should be called A.B. and the Girlfriends He Never Had. That's really what this movie should be called. That's the name of the testimony. Forget the films. So why did I make all those films? And why did I make all those episodes in A.B. and the films? I guess I was seeking approval from somebody. Anybody. Think of all that time wasted, and I don't think I'm gonna get it back. I wish I could go back and, you know, hang with friends, talk to people, try to see what they're interested in. Not only further what I am interested in, because it's getting me nowhere. I'm in a circle. I'm in a loop. All I've done is age. And I'm still the same way. And it frightens me to death. Like, I just think, you know, it was, what was it? It was almost 20 years ago when I made my first film. Look how fast 20 years went. I mean, am I going to be having this conversation with myself 20 years from now when I'm 50? Is that what's going to happen here? God help me. I can't do that. I can't let the films take hold of me. And I think maybe that's why The Chosen was such a strong finale, because originally the A.B. and the Films finale was going to be this grand whole thing of all the favorite classic films from the 20s and the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and all the great films that we all know. The great films that we've hailed as like the masterpieces, and the films I consider masterpieces that you don't really hear about. And some of them I've even talked about on the show. And I was going to do this whole thing, and I just thought, no, I can't glorify this. Because it's not real. How can I glorify something that isn't real? Because it's not giving me anything. It's not. I thought it was. But it's the same thing. It just goes round and round and round. There's nothing new. The only thing that is new are the images. What's it doing for me personally? Well, it's keeping me isolated. It's not keeping me from trying. It's keeping me from trying new things. Things I never even would have thought of. And it's furthering my delusion into wanting to control what I see through a funnel, i.e. a camera. Whether these feelings or these fantasies are fiction or real, it doesn't matter. Here's the script. Say what we tell you to say. I'm all in favor of telling stories in order to help somebody to prove a point. Well, not necessarily to prove a point, but to have a good point to the end of the story. But you do that over and over and over and over again, and all of a sudden that becomes tiring. You're like, what is the substance of this? Why am I given this? What am I supposed to do with this? What am I supposed to do? I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. I wish I had some kind of confirmation about this, just so I could know. Because I'm tired of asking questions all the time. I'm tired of looking at things that aren't real and trying to make them real, because they're not. I've done it for so long, and I've gotten nowhere with it. I wish I knew what to look for. I need to glorify something else, because this isn't doing it for me anymore. I just can't do it anymore. I still love watching movies and analyzing movies, because it's fun. It's a fun thing to do. I love it. I love making movies. I just can't put it first anymore. I did all those things on the show. Destroying the 50 Shades of Grey poster. Reviewing Robert Osborne review films. Swearing and cursing and cussing out Will Smith for Collateral Beauty. Talking about the films I grew up with. My favorite shows, my favorite movies. Doing a tribute to Roger Ebert. Meeting the nostalgia critic. Reviewing the Peanuts movie. Reviewing horror films. The Nickelodeon shows I grew up with. Talking about Marty. 8 Simple Rules. The Amanda Show. All the Halloween specials I did. The Christmas specials I did. Talking about all these, and The Chosen, talking about all of it. My favorite musicals. I did so much on the show. I did so much. I think it was just enough. It was a show where I was asking people, strangers in fact, to invest their time to watch a series where a guy just turns on a camera and talks about movies. And sometimes music. I remember that CD collection and the Police tribute as well. And the Genesis tribute as well, too. And there may be some more in there, too. But I think I need something more. I guess I just have to keep looking. That's all I have for the movie. And I will see you guys in the next film. Take care. All right. So, that's the end of that.
There's a rhythm and rush these days where the lights don't move and the colors don't fade. Leaves you empty with nothing but dreams. In a world gone shallow, in a world gone mean. But there is a truth and it's on our side. Dawn is coming, open your eyes. Look into the sun as a new day's rise.